What's going on, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson here, coming to you today with another episode of Hog Hoops Live, our first of the SEC basketball season. Wasn't the start the Hogs were hoping for, as they were shorthanded, fell on the road to Mississippi State. We'll talk about all that, see if we can identify some of the things that this group can maybe fix quickly. We'll take a look at the upcoming slate and we'll answer all your questions, all that coming your way and more on Hog Hoops Live. All right, everybody, you know the drill right away. I do want to remind everyone how to watch and listen. Obviously, you can join us on Facebook Live. Be sure to give us a follow there. Also available on YouTube. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube page. Hit that notification bell. Remember, Hog Hoops Live has its own separate YouTube page where we upload all of these videos as well as our live reactions following some of these basketball games. If you're the podcast type, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, we're there, right where you can find HawgSports Live with Trey every week. All right, I'm kind of putting you guys in charge today. Going to break some of this madness down, but I'm going to be answering a lot of questions as well, so get those in the chat if you have them. Well, Arkansas falls at Mississippi State last night, 81-68. You know, listen, it's been hard enough to win in Starkville for this team anyway. I think they were something like 7-22 in Starkville all time. Haven't won a game there since I think about 2015. So this was going to be a daunting task, I think, anyway, for the Razorbacks. You know, and as we get close to lunchtime yesterday, start hearing some rumblings that J.D. Note is going to be unavailable. As we get closer to tip-off, I've got a really good source telling me that, you know, the Hogs are actually going to be missing a few guys. And as it turns out, you know, J.D. Note and Chance Moore were out with an illness. I'll let you connect those dots there. Kamani Johnson's been suspended indefinitely. Listen, I'm not going to dive into the specifics on that, but I don't expect him to be back anytime particularly soon. So, you know, really that leaves Arkansas without its leading scorer, the SEC leader in steals, probably also its most physical interior presence for the first true road test of the year, in a place where you rarely have success with a team that is very much still trying to figure it out. So, you know, if there's a recipe for a bad night, that's it, right? But hey, as Eric Musselman said after the game, and I quote, "We got on the plane to compete and win the game. We were down bodies, but we're not excuse makers, and we're not going to not go play a game, because if we have enough bodies to go play, I'm going to play. That's how I was raised." Same here, coach. So let's run through this, right? Honestly, it felt like Arkansas really mostly did what it needed to do in the first half. Now, don't get me wrong, neither team looked particularly good, but I think that's kind of what you get with the way Mississippi State plays. And honestly, the Hogs kind of needed to make this one ugly themselves, given the circumstances, right? So, you know, another shakeup to the starting lineup. I think that's just going to be the way it is until they find something that works. But went with Likes, Devo, Jackson Robinson, Trey Wade, and Jaylen Williams. And, you know, I thought Arkansas did some things well defensively in that first half. I was impressed with the way they competed on the glass and in the paint, which was a huge concern coming into the game, because the Bulldogs are huge. That's a big physical team. It's kind of in their DNA there in Starkville. You know, a pretty decent start. I mean, Trey Wade hits a three. Nice catch and shoot look. Jackson Robinson knocks down a couple. That's what you want to see. Audice Toney shows signs of life, right? He came in and knocked down a catch and shoot three. So those were some promising signs. I thought they did a nice job of navigating around some foul trouble. You had Devo and Toney miss really about half of the first half in foul trouble, but they got around that, and you go into halftime, you're only down by 2, and I think given what you were missing, given the circumstances, you take that every time if you're Arkansas. Now, unfortunately for them, you know, the wheels kind of fell off there in the second half, and we started seeing more of the same things that have haunted this team throughout the early portions of the season. You know, the offense got stagnant, kind of careless and sloppy. Shot selection started to dip, and then meanwhile on the other end, Mississippi State's guards, you talk about Iverson Molinar, Shaquille Moore, Rocket Watts getting involved, DJ Jeffries, those guys really started driving it down Arkansas's throat, and they really dominated in the paint and on the glass most of that second half. It was kind of one of those tell of two halves situations, right? I noticed it was like 11 minutes into the second half, Arkansas had 3 total rebounds. That is crazy. It just ain't gonna cut it. Okay, so the Razorbacks got doubled up on the glass after the break there. Really, for the most part, it's kind of a contrast in styles, right? Arkansas likes to get up and down a little bit. Mississippi State likes to slow it down and play at a lower tempo. I thought the Bulldogs controlled the pace of the game for the most part. And honestly, without Note, maybe Arkansas was okay with that to an extent. But even when they didn't and the game did speed up, I thought Mississippi State executed better than Arkansas did, to be quite honest, on the break. So, the Bulldogs shot 28 free throws to just 14 for Arkansas. And really, it was a little lopsided on the foul calls there, I think, in the second half for a while. But this is more about the Hogs, I think, not being as aggressive to the cup and around the basket more than it was a disparity. Arkansas turned it over 17 times, which was converted into 25 points for Mississippi State. I mean, you just aren't giving yourself a chance to win games when you have some things piling up on you like that. I thought Stanley Moody was a nice bright spot. He had 19 points, led the team. This is a guy that's been slumping, had high expectations coming in, probably hasn't lived up to them. But he fits the bill when it comes to the type of length and athleticism that I think plays on the SEC level. I hope he can build on it because Arkansas needs some more complementary pieces to give him consistency in the scoring department. And quite frankly, I think he needs to be one of those guys. So needs to improve on some things defensively. I think he could probably, with his athleticism, give or provide more of a boost on the glass. But, 19 points right there in his first SEC game on the road. Pretty good. 7 of 12. He was pretty efficient. He missed his first 4 shots, but then made 7 of his last 8. Hit a couple threes. Really hope to see that kind of get him going. I think that would be big for the Razorbacks moving forward. Devo battled foul trouble. He only played 26 minutes. Like I said, he missed, I think, about the last 10 minutes of the first half when he picked up a second foul. He was all right. He gave you 15 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, only a couple turnovers. Okay. Jaylen Williams had a pretty decent stat line, 9 points. It was nice to see him looking to score it a little bit more, although he was still hesitant or maybe a little uncomfortable. He did take 10 shots. Had 7 rebounds in there, 6 assists, and only 2 turnovers. So nice to see him kind of flip the script there over the last couple games and kind of get back to distributing and facilitating the way he has, which kind of makes him a unique player, right? But I do think that Tulu Smith from Mississippi State, their big man, worked him over pretty good for a majority of the game in the paint. Chris Likes was a guy who needed to pick up some slack. It was kind of a rough night for him. He made a few plays, but he had 4 costly turnovers in there. Really struggled defending Moore and Rocket Watts in particular. Jackson Robinson was pretty good, 2 of 7 from 3. I like to see him kind of hunting that 3-point shot and just being aggressive, looking for it. That's a sign of confidence, I think. And then he was kind of impacting the game in other ways. He had 7 rebounds, which is huge for him playing at 6'7" on the wing. And then when Devo was out, I was surprised to see Jackson spend some time defending Iverson Molinar, who's one of the best guards in the SEC. So maybe they're starting to see some of that promise. He looks the part. He kind of fits the profile of a guy who could be a good perimeter defender. But he's still young, needs to get stronger and things like that. But I think that's a sign that he's making progress there too. So I think the future is really bright still for Jackson Robinson, no doubt. But man, after that, you just didn't really get much. Against a big physical Mississippi State team, you need guys like Connor Vanover, Aldis Toney, Trey Wade. They really didn't provide a lot for you there. Wade got the start. He played 23 minutes. He didn't grab a single rebound. So, it was a tough one. What's your vibe with this team right now? I'd be curious to hear what some people think. I mean, I'll be honest, mine's not great. And to me, look, it's not being bent out of shape because they lost at Mississippi State. It's not overreacting to one game without J.D. Notae. It's more or less about it being just kind of another example of this team being near the halfway mark of the season and not really showing a lot by way of growth and improvement. And that's kind of my concern with this group right now. If it was a one-off, wouldn't be that big of a deal. But really, we're 13 games in, and they haven't put together a full 40 minutes and kind of seem to be trending in the wrong direction. So, some things to work on, right? Like, what is this team's identity right now? What can they hang their hat on? What's the calling card for this group? What do they do consistently well on either side of the ball? Hell, who are 5 guys you can put on the floor and know what you're going to get from them on a nightly basis? And I'm not trying to be harsh or gloom and doom or anything. I'm really not. I've been optimistic about this group most of the year, but I don't think there are any clear answers to those questions right now. And look, hey, I'm fully aware of the turnaround that they had last year, and it could happen again. Absolutely could. The talent is there. The coach is there. But this ain't last year's team, right? And I think the problems are a little greater, and there's more of them. So there's some things to figure out here. Do I think this team is going to get better? Absolutely, I do. Come on now. Do I trust Muss to figure it out? Of course. We have no reason not to. But I think I can also be honest with myself and all of you in saying that, the fact that several issues that are plaguing this team right now weren't taken care of during what was, quite frankly, a soft non-conference schedule, that's a concern. And every day that passes is one day less for them to figure it out. And there's no more breaks on this schedule. If you think that Vandy coming into Bud Walton next week is going to be a cakewalk, I've got bad news for you. They're better this year. Texas A&M, same thing, going on the road there. That is not a guaranteed win. So Arkansas is going to have to make some improvements and figure some things out within themselves because they need to win these next 3 games. Vandy, Texas A&M, and Mizzou. Very important stretch. It's interesting seeing Muss. I don't think he should be having to talk about things like, the team needing to play hard for 40 minutes and having a competitive fire after an SEC game. And I think that's kind of where you start with the fix, because I don't want to just sit here and say these are the 10 things that are going wrong. Well, okay, how do they fix them? Because you expect this team to get better and make improvements, right? I think that's where it starts. Every team is different. They respond in different ways. So to me, I think the first challenge here for Eric Musselman is to figure out, what's going to resonate and kind of get this group to come together and really start bringing it consistently, because we've seen so many spurts, but they, like I said earlier, they haven't put together that full 40 minutes yet. Right? I think it starts with that energy, that fire. Somehow I think this group has to regain kind of that chip on the shoulder mentality. And quite frankly, they need it. Listen, the target is off your back at this point. Arkansas is not an NCAA tournament team, and it's early to be talking about that. Plenty of times to rectify that situation, right? But given the resume right now, they're on the outside looking in. So they've got work to do, right? This isn't a group that's feared. If anything, teams are smelling blood in the water right now when they're facing the Razorbacks. So how can they flip that into fuel and motivation the way we saw last year? So, what are the fixes? I think it starts with just getting that competitive edge. And then you remember, how many times have we heard Eric Musselman say those 3 E's: effort, energy, and enthusiasm? Those are things that he preaches. It starts there. Right, and then on the floor, man, it's like those Facebook relationship statuses, right? It's complicated. You could go in a lot of different directions, and I think, at least in my opinion, the defense could be something that comes along a little bit quicker, because I think at least a decent amount of that can be controlled by effort. So, we've seen this group play some really good basketball defensively against good teams. I always go back to that Hall of Fame Classic in Kansas City. Man, the intensity and the energy that they played with on the defensive end, even though they still made some mistakes, got beat on some back doors, struggled against the dribble drive a bit, whatever, but just their sheer intensity was overwhelming at times, and they really locked up. They made other teams uncomfortable. I think that could be the first thing that they get back to doing. I really do. From there, it seems to me that maybe putting an emphasis on guarding the ball and limiting dribble penetration has got to be priority number one, because that's where a lot of this stems from. And they've got the athletes to do it. Devo Davis, JD Notae, you look at the build and the makeup of some of these guys, giving up straight line drives against a pressure man defense is a killer, and they've got to be able to do a better job of keeping their man in front. So how do they do that? Do they adjust and maybe pack it in a little bit to have guys more readily available and help position? Do they apply a little bit less ball pressure and give a little bit more cushion to keep guys in front? I don't know. We'll see. But I think if they are able to solve that issue, at least to a degree, it can fix a lot of the problems that are going on the defensive end. I do think they're going to need one of those athletic wings, like probably an Audi's Tony, to really be able to guard some high-level players. I mean, you're going to have a run here where almost every night there's going to be a future draft pick on the wing for the other team. Who's going to guard that guy? And sometimes it'll be a smaller guard or whatever. You can stick Devo on him, and that's great. But you're going to see those guys that are 6'6", 6'7", kind of freakish athletes. Who's going to lock them up? I think Tony can be that guy. I mean, he's got some things he's got to work through himself, but I think he can be that guy. On the offensive end, it seems disconnected, maybe is the word. I mean, it's easy to kind of point at the point guard play. The truth is there really isn't one on this team, and that's okay if there's continuity and chemistry with the guys on the floor, and there's not right now, and it doesn't really matter what combinations are being used. So I don't know what the disconnect is there. That's something to work through. If I'm Muss at this point in the half-court offense, I probably would start to micromanage a little bit more. And you want guys to be able to play with freedom, and they'll still do that, but, maybe if he wants a particular look for a particular guy, he might have to start forcing the issue more with set plays and actions to create those. And I also think in doing that, it places a heavier emphasis on some of the fundamental struggles that we've seen, like simply setting quality screens, or knowing how to set your man up and utilize those screens, making proper secondary reads off of those, things like that. Could probably improve fairly quickly on just getting some more second chance opportunities. Really, they're scoring it all right for the most part, honestly. I mean, I think they're at like 80 points per game. So that's not bad, right? I think it's just the fact of it being not super efficient. It gets a little clunky at times, and it comes in waves. So things they can do to kind of streamline, the chemistry and get everybody connected on the floor, and just have it more consistently. So there are ways that this group can improve. So I think there are some quick fixes where you can see some improvement right away, but it is going to be a process to get these guys going. And it's top to bottom, right? From staff to the very last player, on just everybody being fully bought in, and kind of finding that identity and getting it going. Okay. Like I said, it's going to be a pretty question-heavy show, so I do have a handful of questions from our HawgSports subscribers over on the Razor's Edge message boards that I'm going to get to, and then I'm going to jump right into the chat. Looks like we got quite a few in there too, so let's just get right into it. Let me pull these up real quick. All right, from Swish Musselman. Swish Musselman is obviously someone who knows what's going on with Coach, right? He says, we know Muss will be selective in the portal this offseason. What do you think is the most important position of need? A lot of people would probably point to a true point guard at this time. And, I think you've also got to look at, kind of what you got coming in with a guy like a Darian Ford, really more of a combo guard, but he could fill some time there. Nick Smith, who's going to be an incredible player, by the way, but going to be kind of a ball-dominant guy. So I don't know if that would be as high on my priority list as some other things. Really, if it was me in the transfer portal this offseason, I would definitely be very selective, and I would want not only proven high major production, but I would want a significant track record of success from beyond the arc. I think this team needs guaranteed three-point shooting. I don't care what position it's at, on the wing, a stretch forward, whatever. And then just some length / athleticism inside. It seems like there's a lot of these SEC teams that have, that 6'9" guy with a 7-foot wingspan that can run the floor and can be switchable defensively. And I think that would be something that could really complement what you have in Jaylen Williams nicely. So I think those would probably be the two things that I would really focus most heavily on. We've had several who have asked about, whether or not this NIL stuff has impacted Devo. Maybe it's gone to his head or he's showboating out there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. To me, I think Devo's always been, just thinking back to his high school days, he's kind of been like a flashy player, right? He plays with some flair about him. And, I don't know that getting some NIL deals has impacted that. I mean, maybe it has. I don't know. I don't talk to him on a daily basis or anything, but if anything, I think he's just kind of coming out of his shell more and is more comfortable. He's not a true freshman anymore. He's supposed to be one of the leaders on this team. I think that's just kind of the way he plays. I think there's an adjustment period when you're going from kind of being that fourth or fifth option in the lineup to being a guy who is point guard and you need him to score and you need him to take on the biggest defensive assignment every night. So he's probably got a lot going on right now, and I think that leads to some of the uneven play. But overall, I think he's been quite a bit better lately, and hopefully that carries over into some consistency, because if he's the Devo that he was, at the back half of SEC play last season going into postseason play, Arkansas is a way better team. OEB Hogs says, he had a few questions. I'm picking one of them. I'll get back to the other ones on the boards later. But he asks, who will step up and become the leader of this team? A couple talk about leading, but haven't followed up with leadership action on the court. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot, and I have two answers for you, honestly. I think you need at least one of those guys who's a returner, who's been there in the system, understands the culture, and helped lay the foundation. And it doesn't matter who that is. A lot of talk has been about Devo and Jay Will. It could be, I think it needs to be someone who plays a significant role, maybe JD. If he can be that guy, he doesn't seem like the most vocal guy, but I would probably say either Devo or Jaylen Williams with the been there, done that mentality. But I also think it's important to have a different voice involved. It's interesting, those two guys are both sophomores. You have a lot of upperclassmen in the room now, and I think there needs to be a balance there. So if one of those transfers can step up and be a voice alongside one of those returning guys, I think that's where you really can kind of start to get things to mesh together. So, when Arkansas was going through their struggles after those two losses, Musselman mentioned Chris Likes and Stanley Moody as a couple guys who had kind of increased their levels of being vocal at practice and displaying some positive leadership. I think Stanley Moody could be that guy. What you need, though, is for him to play consistently and produce on the floor, because it's twofold. You got to lead by action, and then you have to lead with your voice, right? But those would kind of be the guys that I would think could step up and kind of assume that role. Stanley's a smart kid, man. He's really well spoken, has a good head on his shoulders. I think that he could be a guy that really factors in there. DBJ Hog 23 had some rapid fire questions for me, so I'm going to roll through those pretty quick. First one is Jaylen playing through injuries? I think he's probably, feeling the effects of some things. I don't know that for sure, but, this is a guy who missed practice time in the preseason with an ankle and then came back. Doesn't seem like he's quite as explosive as maybe we expected. Could that be impacting him? Maybe so. And then he missed one of the exhibition games with back spasms. You see him out there quite a bit in warm-ups and things. He's got, the kind of the little back brace thing on. I don't know that he's 100%. I don't know that anybody is, though, at this point in the season. I thought maybe we'd see him a little bit rejuvenated after getting a few days off, and I think he was a little bit. He played 36 minutes in that game last night. That might be a career high. If it's not, it's close to it. Why is Kamani still on the team? Well, he is indefinitely suspended for now. We'll see what that turns into. Again, I'm not really going to get into the details of what went down there, but that is a couple instances now that have been less than ideal for him. So we'll see what his future holds. Why does Muss let Likes take terrible shots, turn it over, take him out for a minute, and put him right back in? Well, I think there's two parts to that. One, I think given his track record previously, and at some point it's about what have you done here, I understand that. But I think given the makeup of his game previously, he was a guy that was brought in here to complement J.D. Note and his shot creation. So that comes with some bad shots from time to time. I think that's part of it. So he does have some of the green light there. In terms of the turnovers, he had a bad night last night, but honestly, for a majority of the season, he's limited the turnovers. It's been more about maybe the shot selection, and then taking him out for a minute and putting him right back in. I think he's still got some trust in a guy that's scored over 1,000 points, has played at a high level, and then it's also about who subs in for him. It's one thing to take a guy out, but if the guy that you put in isn't doing anything to stay on the floor, well, chances are you're going to make another move at some point, especially with a guy like Likes, because you just know that the potential is there for impact, right? Scoring burst, getting to the free throw line, things of that nature. So I think that's what you got going on there. Why do you think Muss doesn't try to recruit big men more? I don't know. No, I know he likes the positionless kind of style of basketball, and so that kind of calls for guys to just all be in that 6'6", 6'7" range, so they can be switchable defensively. Makes things a little easier in a way on the defensive end, and makes things potentially more fluid offensively. But I do think this group would benefit from not only some more size and physicality, but just length and athleticism in the front court. You got a guy like a Jordan Walsh coming in this recruiting class. He's 6'7", super long, probably a guy that'll really play a lot at the 3-4. But again, I think if you complement Jaylen Williams with somebody who brings great length, rim running ability, mobility, athleticism, that would help this group a lot next season. Tony seems to have regressed lately. What can this be attributed to? Listen, your guess is as good as mine. It's crazy. I mean, for the first 8 games of the season, he was just on a completely different level than everybody else in terms of just his energy and his activity levels around the basket. And there's been a big drop off there. When you see things like that, you always wonder about injuries, and we asked about that, and apparently that's not the case. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, because I just can't pinpoint anything else that could be going on there. Teams have adjusted to his cutting and crashing the offensive glass, but he made his living in other ways at Pitt, and this is a guy who is very much talented enough to be producing more than he has the last several games. So I don't know if it's a slump. You never know what a guy has going on, in their mind or at home or whatever. I don't know, but there's definitely something going on there, and Arkansas needs him to be the guy that he was early in the season. Really just a tremendous talent. So I do hope that, whatever's going on, he can kind of get it turned around. for his sake and the team. Are we in for a long season? Maybe. I mean, listen, I like to give the benefit of the doubt. I've remained optimistic about this group all season, but I don't have a lot of reason 13 games in to be super optimistic, if I'm being honest. I think that there are enough pieces there and enough of a track record with the staff to where this team could figure things out and make the NCAA tournament. I do think they could do that. Right now, I'm not seeing them trending in that direction. So they're going to have to flip the switch. They can, but it hasn't happened yet. How long until baseball season starts? It gets earlier every year. I wouldn't be surprised to see them play a game in January at some point, but I think it's usually around, what, Valentine's Day, maybe the weekend before. Hog Fan Red says, what do you think? That's hell of a follow-up question here. What do you think we have going for us that we can build on? I think you've got some pieces, right? And we knew that coming into the season. This team's got a lot of talent, and it's about putting it together. I mean, you do have one of the best scorers in the SEC, the leading steals man, in J.D. Notae. That's a start. You've got some guys who have really contributed in high-level, meaningful moments in the past, in Devo Davis, Jaylen Williams. How can you complement those guys? How can you continue to get Jackson Robinson to emerge and progress? Because it seems like he's kind of on the fast track to be a breakout guy for you. And then it's just about putting it all together, I think this team has started to shoot the ball better from the perimeter. And I know they were, 8 of 27 or something last night. It wound up not being very good. It was just under 30%. But they were 8 of 19, and then they missed their last 8 kind of in desperation mode time. So, in that first 30 minutes or so of the game, the shot selection there was better. They were getting a lot of those catch and shoot looks. And this is without, JD, who leads the team in makes from 3, and Chris, who is one of your higher percentage guys. He was only 1 of 4. So those other guys getting involved. Jax hit a couple, Wade. We mentioned, a Moody hitting 2. That could be big for you. Audis Tony with a catch and shoot. Those are guys who can help supplement some makes from 3 there. And if they can just be a threat, I've said it 100 times, from beyond the arc, well, all of a sudden, teams have to spread out a little bit more and respect it. And that opens up those driving lanes that, just haven't been there in some of these games. So, some things to build on. And, again, there are no off nights in the SEC. None of these games coming up are going to be easy, but you do avoid the top end of the conference for the most part until February. So if they can take baby steps and get just a little bit better every game, they can still find ways to win and have themselves in a good position when it's, you've got like 7 quad 1 games in the final 8 or something crazy. Danny West. Imagine a world where Danny West is asking me a question. I'm humbled. He says, is there a scenario in which we look back on this run and go, wow, hard to believe this team in the Sweet 16 was playing that poorly in December? Yeah. I mean, there is that scenario where that could happen. I think, a lot of things would need to occur at this point for that to take place. But look, at the end of the day, there's been so much consistency with this team, and players who just, quite frankly, haven't played that well yet. So if you get the Mississippi State version of Stanley Moody consistently, and you get the Cincinnati and Kansas State version of Audis Tony consistently to go with JD and Devo and Jaylen Williams, and then you've got Jackson Robinson emerging. Okay, yeah, then you're on to something. So, I think on any given day, this team's capable of beating anybody, right? But they've got to be able to play better consistently, and that goes from, game to game and within the game, from half to half. We see all these, it's just been a roller coaster ride for the most part. So, yeah, I think that could happen. The key is to figure it out, be playing your best basketball once you get to March, get in the tournament, and then we know it's all about matchups and all bets are off. Z Beeler 1 of my favorites, says, how excited are you for next year? It's Nick Smith, freshman of the year. I mean, it's going to be pretty cool to see the group coming in. You're always excited when you got some in-state guys coming in. You think about Nick and Darian and Joseph Pinion. I really like Barry Dunning, and obviously Jordan Walsh. We all know I've been the president of his fan club since this time last year. So I think it's a really good group coming in. You have to be patient with them. This is a group of veterans this season, and it's taken them a while to figure it out. So there's going to be some growing pains. But, man, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. They're going to be exciting. And, quite honestly, Nick Smith has just been out of his mind. Is anybody watch what this guy was doing at the King Cotton Classic the last few days? He's going to be a big-time scorer, big-time player for this Razorback team. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. You wonder who all is going to come back. You think about guys like Devo and Jaylen coming back as upperclassmen, Jackson Robinson with another year under his belt. And then, what are they going to add in the portal? Because like we said earlier, they're probably going to be pretty selective with that, and they're going to be looking for major impact pieces. So it's going to be fun to watch, no doubt about it. Graybuck5 says, is matchup zone possible with Muss? Probably not. I mean, we saw a little bit of it during non-conference play last year. So I guess he's not completely unwilling to do it, but he's been 99% man-to-man most of his career. I mean, maybe they start showing some of that to mix it up. I think they'll try some other things within their man, or maybe pressing, trapping, making some tweaks here and there before they go that route, but we'll see. PSE Hog says, why do you think the Hogs are performing poorly after 7 months playing together? Do you think they're just a bad combination of guys that aren't compatible? Yeah, I mean, I think that's the $1 million question. If I had the answer to that, I'd probably be on staff right now. It's interesting. You think about how last year's group came together during all the things going on with COVID, where they were really limited with their ability to not just be on the floor together, but just bond with one another. And that hasn't been the case this year. These guys have been together since May. Reports, and it wasn't fluff. They were excited about this group throughout the course of the summer. And I'm sure they still are. But, yeah, it has been interesting that it hasn't really clicked just yet. So I don't know. I mean, there's still 17 games of SEC play for them to figure it out and come together. But you're right. It is interesting, and it is a concern that we are at this point, and it hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it won't, but it hasn't happened yet. Alma Razorback says, personally, I think this team's biggest problem is the lacking combo of length and athleticism. Like last year, you had Justin Smith at 6'7" with strength and elite athleticism. Tate and Moody both at 6'6" with long arms, high basketball IQ. Really changed what the team could do defensively. We already have some in the signing class, but surely the priority this offseason is going to be adding more length and athleticism to the roster. Yeah, we talked about that. I agree. And, yeah, I think that's what made that team so special. You've got a guy like Jalen Tate who typically is guarding the other team's point guard, but you could switch him onto a power forward, and because he's 6'6" with a 6'9" wingspan, he's fine. Same thing with Moses Moody. Right? He could guard 2s, 3s, 4s. Justin Smith could guard a center. You could switch him onto a point guard, and he'd be fine. So, yeah, I think that team could do more things in that regard defensively. That doesn't mean this group can't be good on the defensive end of the floor. But I think just in terms of what Musselman likes to do, it's definitely a better fit in that regard last year. Okay. I'm going to get over to the chat now, see what you guys got going on. Let me scroll up here. Joey Moses says, what happened to Johnson? I assume you're talking about Kamani, again, it's not really for me to get into those details, but you know, had an incident, is suspended indefinitely, and right now that's all we know. We asked Muss about it last night. He didn't want to comment on it. I don't know how long the suspension is going to last, or if he'll be allowed to return. We'll just have to see. Michelle Rava says, what do you think they need to focus on at practice now to move forward and get some wins now that we're in SEC play? Yeah, I hit on that a little bit earlier too, and I think it does start with just getting that competitive fire back and just playing, full tilt, 110% on the floor. And because when you do that, first of all, it's fun to watch, but then good things start to happen, right? When the diving on the loose balls and you start winning more of those 50-50s, you get more opportunities in transition. When you're playing good defensively, it can really fuel your offense. So I think finding that, I'm not sure how you do it, but I think that's a start. And then some of the other things, what do they need to do to be able to defend dribble penetration better? How can they kind of eliminate some of those clunky stretches offensively? I think it might be just forcing the issue by calling more plays and kind of forcing these guys to execute as a collective unit. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But that's probably where I would start, at least. Cody Lewis says, likes is quick as lightning, but turns the ball over way too much. KK isn't playing with confidence because as soon as he does one thing wrong, he's benched, needs extended minutes. Agree. We'll see. I don't know. Likes, he is quick. He really hasn't turned it over that much. I mean, he had 4 last night. I think he's got like 16 or so total on the season. He's probably 3rd, 4th, 5th on the team in turnovers. But I think it's the combination of, well, for one, usually when he makes them, they come at bad times. It's like live ball turnovers that go for layups on the other end. And then some of the poor shot selection, those heavily contested mid-ranges and stuff, that's almost like a turnover. So I agree there. And, with KK, I mean, yeah, he gets pulled out, if he does some things wrong. He's had some struggles with on the defensive end, just in terms of his assignment and, kind of getting lost a little bit off the ball. And that's not anything that other guys haven't done. But man, I mean, he got to start. He's gotten double-digit minutes the last couple games. I don't think he's played poorly, but I don't know that he's necessarily done anything to really warrant an extended role other than other guys just not playing great. So yeah, I mean, if they want to give him an extended role, I'm cool with that. I'd like to see what he does with it, but I'd also like to see him maybe do a better job of taking advantage of the opportunities that he has been getting. I mean, last night was a golden opportunity. If you think about it, JD Notae's out. He's unavailable. Devo's going to the bench for the final 10 minutes of the first half. And, that was really an opportunity to kind of come in and grab the reins and roll with it. And, again, he was fine, but, didn't do anything that really jumped off the page for me. So, hopefully, with getting, double-digit minutes the last couple games, starting to get in there more consistently, it's going to be on him to find some comfort there. And hopefully he does, because I do think he can help this team. I do think he profiles as a guy that can help facilitate. I think he's a guy that can help him shooting from 3-point range. So I think it's a combination of, you want to see him get more opportunities, but he also needs to take advantage of the ones that he gets so he can get those increased opportunities. Dustin Hoofman says, I didn't expect much from this year, but Musselman has talent coming that should turn it back around quickly. You didn't expect much this year? I mean, they were top 15 or whatever in the country coming into the season. And a lot of that is based off what they did last year. I guess that's kind of how it works. But, I mean, you had 3 starters and 4 major contributors coming back from an Elite 8 team. And, guys with a lot of proven track records coming in from the portal. So I mean, my expectations were high. They do have talent coming in. Could turn it back around and quickly, but again, it's a lot of freshmen. So we know there's going to be some growing pains there, in terms of them figuring it out. We'll see what they add in the portal. But I do think it's going to be a really exciting team next year. It could be a special one. It's a little bit different too in basketball. In football, you don't see a lot of freshmen, right? True freshmen playing in the SEC unless they're really special. Just because it takes a while to develop physically to get ready for that. Basketball is a little bit different story when you talk about one and dones and the way these guys compete, on the EYBL circuit, Peach Jam and things like that. So yeah, they're gonna have a couple guys coming in on that freshman class that are gonna be pretty tough, and they're gonna push for some big time immediate roles. James and Phillips says Vanover should be scoring at least 20 points a game and blocking a lot of shots. He roams the paint, but nobody passes to him. Yeah, I thought that was weird last night where, last year Vanover, he played against the same Mississippi State team with a lot of the same front court players, the same slowed down tempo and style of play. He played like 30 minutes. He had 13 points, 8 rebounds. Like, he was a huge reason why Arkansas beat Mississippi State last year. So I thought, we know that things are very matchup dependent for Connor. If Mississippi State's not a good matchup for him, then who is? I really thought that he would play a bigger role in that game, especially with Arkansas, a little shorthanded in the front court, in the second half, struggling around the rim. He never got back in there. But, he was in early and, grabbed a board, kind of missed a little putback there, and we didn't really see much from him. Made one bad pass that I remember where he kind of fumbled it and it got stolen, but I don't know. Just not bringing it. And he was really effective early in the season too, around the basket, and again against some decent competition. Those teams in Kansas City were big, long, physical, and he was a key part of what Arkansas had going on there. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to pinpoint that one too. Dustin Hoofman says, my wild card and for defensive star and being able to turn that into offense is Stanley Moody. Yeah, I tell you what, you look for silver linings, after tough losses, and that was definitely him. He's really athletic, and I like that he can score in the post. Usually, especially if he gets his feet set, he can knock down that mid-range and, hit a couple threes last night and starting to spread the floor. So when Arkansas brought him in, they thought, man, this is going to be a dude who's a 3-level scorer that we can run plays for. And, it hasn't panned out consistently yet, but, last night was a pretty good sign. And, if he's a guy that can improve defensively, and he's made some plays, but I think he's been a little unsure in the system early on, and so that's kind of why he's been getting hit, popped on the 3-point line a little bit. And then just, with everybody else, just a little bit better footwork on the ball, turning those straight line drives and making these guys take angles into help a little bit more. That'll prevent Arkansas from having to overhelp, which leads to those kick out threes. So, I think he could be a decent little wild card pick there. Andrew Sawyer says, how worried are you? I really, even up until Christmas, even after the Oklahoma loss, the Hofstra loss, my optimism was still pretty high. And again, I know, like, Arkansas typically doesn't win at Mississippi State. They were without some guys. So, what did you expect? But it still kind of increased my concern levels a little bit because, man, you just keep seeing more of the same. And it's hard to describe other than to say it just doesn't feel right at the moment. So, and then I couldn't sleep last night, so I was running through a lot of these other SEC games, watching LSU and Auburn, watching Kentucky, watching Alabama and Tennessee, and I think that might have me a little bit more worried right now because all of those teams are further along right now than Arkansas is. And that doesn't mean that they're significantly more talented than Arkansas or that they're, that the Hogs can't make up ground. But that's like 5 or 6 teams right there who they're just better than Arkansas right now. And I didn't really expect to say that going into the season. So a lot of work to be done. How worried am I? Scale of 1 to 10, probably at about a 6 right now. And really, I wasn't sweating it too much going into the holiday. It's probably a 4. So Cedric White says, we need the certified big. Yeah, I'd sign me up for that. It was interesting. I thought that maybe they were going to add one late in portal season. They do have an open scholarship. It just seemed like, maybe beefing up the front court a little bit would have been the move to make. But they also like to keep, one open if possible. Cedric White also says, do you believe they should have Likes play a lot more without the ball, have him move instead of being ball dominant? Yeah, I mean, they did that a lot over the summer in practice. They had him running off of screens and getting catch and shoot looks from 3. And I'm trying to remember how much of that we've seen during the season. And that kind of coincided with getting Devo integrated at the point guard position. So yeah, I think you want a guy like Likes to have some freedom to create, but if he's going to be one of your better perimeter shooters, you need to be able to free him up for some of those looks to get him some high quality shots. I think we would be seeing more of Chris Likes, to answer your question. I think we would be seeing more of Chris Likes moving around off the ball if there was a more clear answer right now with the point guard position, and if this team had better flow and continuity, because I think what's happening, especially when they're playing from behind, is these guys aren't connected enough right now to where maybe it's Chris, maybe it's Devo, maybe it's JD, but somebody gets that ball and is like, man, I got to get us a bucket. And I don't think it's selfish basketball or whatever so much as guys just not really understanding what their roles are yet. Andrew Sawyer says Trey Wade needs to be a leader. Yeah, you know what? He's got a voice that resonates, I think. He seems like one of those guys that can command a room. Veteran. I could see him being that guy. I mean, Arkansas would benefit from him playing better, but hey, he's kind of integrated himself into that starting lineup. And so maybe, by playing more, he could be a guy that can grab the attention of some folks. Josh Wilbanks says, hey, Curtis, hey, what's going on? David Voss says, red flags flying when we're not to January and kids not even on campus are being talked about. Yeah, but, I mean, come on now. It's the number 2 recruiting class, signing class in the country. That's worth being excited about. Even if Arkansas was undefeated right now, I'd be pumped about that group coming in. I get what you're saying, though. It's funny. David Voss also says Amude needs to be out there 20 to 25 minutes per game. It'd be nice if he could give you that consistently. I continue to expect him to get into the starting lineup and stay there. But he's gotten that opportunity a couple times and hasn't had the best games when he has. Let's see. Josh Wilbanks says rolling off there. They did not play good the first half. They tried too many 3-point shots. At least they were making them, though. And like I said earlier, I don't think either team really played well in the first half. I think some of that's just by nature of the way Mississippi State plays. But I do think, Arkansas probably figured without JD that scoring was going to be a little bit of a premium. So you need to kind of make it clunky, make it ugly to sneak out with a road win. I think that was some of it. But hey, they got in the half, only down 2 points, with an opportunity to win the game in the second half before the wheels fell off. So I'd take that first half over the second at least. David Voss says this team needs a Jaylen Tate, don't have one. Yeah, we talked about Tate and just his importance. That's why it was interesting, I thought, when when Arkansas brought Chris Laxon. I like Chris Laxon, and especially, what he did at Miami, but it just kind of seems like, Musselman's kind of made his calling card on taking those guys who were, maybe not your traditional build of a point guard, just longer, defensive-minded guys like a Tate, like a Jimmy Witt, and really having a lot of success with them. So I did find that interesting at the time. Voss said, had a chance to catch Texas Tech in person, they would smoke us. Oh, a lot of teams would right now. But, hey, Texas Tech is good. I think Mark Adams is a good coach down there. They got a couple guys out of the portal that I was really hoping Arkansas would get. Kevin O'Banner, the Oral Roberts forward, is one of them. We remember talking about him a lot. And then Bryson Williams. And those are two guys who are, 6'7", 6'8". They're big. They rebound. They can space the floor and shoot threes. And that's why I thought, this team could have really benefited from, but they went more, I think, more wing-oriented with guys like Tony and Stanley Moody instead. David says, I like CV. Arkansas needs a 6'10", 6'11" aircraft carrier that checks the boxes. Aircraft carrier, I like that. Yeah, it seems like I think we're all in agreement that this team would benefit a little bit more from having some length, right? Added length in the front court. They've got some of those long arms on the wing, but you think about if Connor is going to be a matchup dependent guy. Jaylen Williams is big, physical, does a lot of things really well, but in terms of length and athleticism, not maybe so much. And then, Trey Wade and Kamani Johnson are more physical, undersized, banger type players. So yeah, getting one of those 6'9", 6'10", crazy wingspan guys to complement them would be nice. David Voss, yeah. Could the staff turnover have any bearing on chemistry? I wonder about that some. Especially with some of the returners, maybe. I don't know how strong the relationship was between guys like Devo and Jaylen and JD with a Corey Williams or David Patrick. But I sure do like the guys they got. I mean, Gus Arginal seems like he is. He's a really super personable guy. He's young, he's energetic. I think that vibes well with the players, and Keith Smart. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's been a head coach for 3 NBA teams, a guy that commands respect, that has kind of, swallowed his pride a little bit. It's not easy to go, ask Muss, to go from being an NBA head coach to a college assistant. I just think it's so valuable to have that. So I think they've got a really nice staff put in place, but when it changes every year, those are new voices with new ideas and new thoughts. So I don't know. I don't know if it does or not. I could certainly see how it could. Then final one here, Josh Wilbanks says it's still early, but they'll come back and get in sync. I hope so. I think they can. Listen, a lot to work on, and certainly not pretty at the moment, but that's okay. Keep the faith. Definitely on a struggle bus right now, but I do still think we're a couple weeks away from really having to think about pressing the panic button or anything like that. The next 3 games, I think are kind of make or break for you. Those are 3 wins that Arkansas needs to pick up. Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Missouri, not going to be easy, but if you're going to compete in the top half of the league, those are games that you win. So I think those are really important. I guess that about wraps us up. Hey, listen, we've got the Outback Bowl coming in a couple days. That's exciting. I'm looking forward to that one. Should be a lot of fun. Trey's down there in Tampa. He's been throwing out walk and talks every day. I don't know if he's got anything going on with that today or the next day, but I know he's enjoying it down there. Arkansas and Penn State, it's going to be exciting. See these guys get after it one more time. It's been a special year for the football program. So enjoy that. Enjoy that. Happy New Year to everybody. Appreciate you joining in. Appreciate all the questions and comments as always. And we will be back after the Vanderbilt game next week. And until then, it's been Curtis Wilkerson. Appreciate you guys like always. This has been Hog Hoops Live.